Hello and good morning. It is March 27th, Wednesday, and I woke up just with lots of messages, very pulled to do a reading this morning. And something that has been happening to me, I'm not sure if this has been happening to other people, but it has to do with the expansion and like the solar storms and all of this. Like, there's multiple things happening on different laterals simultaneously, and one of the ways that that's manifesting in my life is that I have these very quick snippets of what feels like a deja vu, but it's a memory from a different point within my life or a past life, but they've been primarily like legitimate memories from this life. Whereas like yesterday I was doing something, and it's the sensation that you get from a deja vu, but all of a sudden I could see, it was like I was 12 years old back home in Vermont where I grew up, standing in some kid's driveway, and I could see the opening of like a barn and the light on the pavement. It was just such a crystal clear, vivid recollection of something that definitely happened to me. And I remember that, but I would never have volunteered that memory consciously. It's the middle of the day. I'm like, it's just, you just got to keep going. But like, what does it mean? There's an element of just letting it all flow right now and like being a witness to these interesting connection points within the mind. And I woke up with a memory really, but there was some sort of lesson, and I actually was kind of like marinating and like softly meditating on this for about like 15 to 20 minutes, but I forgot all of it when I got out of bed. Like, I wasn't recording it. It was just kind of for me to mull over. But I'm going to do Ascended Masters. I'm going to do an energy to embrace, release, and like the current energy and advice spread. Let me start with that. But so there's been weird memory that I woke up with today was from an unfortunate and somewhat threatening incident in my life, probably like 6 years ago. And I was being threatened at knife point. And I was being told to say something that was not true, that I did not want to say. But that was the thing that, and this is like a real memory, this isn't a dream, but I woke up dreaming about it, like being right back in this situation, having somebody who was threatening me, telling me to say certain words that I didn't believe in. I have fairly strong opinions, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind. And there's been times in my life where I've had people, particularly men, kind of pull that thing with me where they're like, careful, or even ex-partners of mine have been like, you're lucky I'm not, this is a horrible thing to say to somebody, but this has been said to me by one of my exes, like, you're lucky I'm not a more like violent or abusive person, because you have the tendency to piss people off with what you say and stuff. Like, so that was a particularly weird situation for me, because I obviously care about my safety, and there was somebody else involved in their safety. And I did not know this person it wasn't like I got myself, it could have maybe happened to anybody. It's just on the street, really. But I ended up saying what needed to be said in order to protect my like physical safety in that moment, however many years ago that happened. And what I woke up thinking about was how there's this pressure in the collective right now around a similar sensation, like threat or not feeling safe, and there being very valid, real evidence around why you're not feeling safe. But being pressured into doing or saying something that's not in your truth, feeling like there's no other way and you have to do that for self-preservation or survival in dire circumstances. So yeah, something with that. And then I was just picking up this deck from doing shorts in the morning. I had this deck downstairs in my living room window, and I went to go get it. And right when I put my hand on it, a mourning dove went like came over and sat on the windowsill outside the screen. Right when my hand touched it, I was like, oh, hi there. And then its fellow bird joined it. Another one came, and they were both kind of like doing their bird thing, staring at me, but I never really get birds like that up close to the window because I live kind of high up and stuff. And Spirit is very active today. I love this time of year. I love all of just how quickly things start to move when there's a different pulse within nature as like the earth starts to thaw and all of that. It's a really productive time. Oh, and don't keep your emotions in check when it comes to miscommunications and things not panning out for you. I was in the car yesterday, and at every stoplight, I tried to complete my Starbucks order on the mobile because I was going from this place to that place, and I was like, oh, I can catch that Starbucks before I go there. And every time I was at a light or not driving focused on the road, I would try to complete the order. And I thought I had picked the right location, but I didn't know that. So I was trying to check out, and like there are a few things in this world that irritate me more than like the sound. That's not true, so I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. Like when technology doesn't work and it's like doo, or like there's like a vibe, like with the iPhones now with like the haptics and the sounds, they make like vibrations when there's an error message. I hate those things. They irk me. They piss me off so much. So I was getting annoyed because I didn't know why the order wasn't going through. And then I finally got it to go through. I quit the app. It was saying like an error occurred. Start over. I didn't want to have to do that, but I did, whatever. And then when I finally got to the Starbucks, they're like, you sent it to a different store. That one's like over there. So it's like, it wasn't working out. It was a connection issue. It's very Mercury retrograde, but in some ways it was drawing my attention to the fact that I had made a mistake. And the order shouldn't have gone through that way because I went to the wrong place and I had to drive somewhere else to go get it because I had already paid for it and I'm stubborn. But just stuff like that, right? Don't force things or get annoyed at the things that seem to be backfiring, even in the smallest of ways right now, because that is part of the season. Also, another thing, something else that I've been thinking about is that like when old habits die hard, I just heard that in my mind. When there are parts of the human, like in our ego minds, or the ways that we've been conditioned, the way that we like to live, we develop our comforts and stuff. If you're in the process of trying to change a habit or move away from something, I feel like there's this natural part of that detachment where the inner part of, I wish I had proper terms for describing all of this right now. There's a part of you that really, really clings. Like my example is that I'm really trying to wean myself off of and quit cigarettes. I have so much throat chakra clearing to do and that I've been doing. And I truly believe it's time. And my body is showing me, like, I genuinely am asking to fall out of alignment with the craving so that it's easy to quit, so that it's easy. I would love that. That would be great. And I'm doing energy work along those lines. But I find that if I'm like thinking about giving something up, I will crave it so hard right before I'm ready to do it. I've been like, sorry, Mom, if you watch this one, I'm like eating cigarettes lately. Like I can't get enough of smoking cigarettes. And I think it's just like this last hurrah type thing. Somebody watching this might be like, okay, nice excuse. You're just doing what you want. Yeah, well, I do, in the way that I am focused on manifesting and extending my energy out right now, there is a version of myself who is leading my life in the not so distant future, and she does not smoke as much as this one does. So that's how I know that it's not playing a game. I know there's plenty of people from my past who would be like, you're not going to quit. We'll see. We'll all see. Not you'll all see. We'll all see together. We will all see together. So anyway, just mixed messages this morning about being in a place where it's important to speak your truth, even if you feel threatened or like it's not the right thing to do, but also being wise and using discernment around like your self-preservation, your safety, It's not your job to make sure people understand things or change other people. You need to know where that runs out and where your energy is going to be drained and wasted to take part in certain engagements where there's, that's your choice. If you want to be on that level in that playing field, you can be. You can have a place in that dynamic, but you also can recognize that you don't. And if you've been in a certain type of dynamic for a long time and then you decide that you do not have a part in it anymore, the other party might very subconsciously but come after you and try to tug you back into it because they don't know what to do without you and your participation in whatever kind of dynamic has been upheld for however long. But messages with that. Messages around this whole deja vu sensation, but really I get I see a Rolodex, like the old-fashioned kind. My dad had one when I was a kid. If I ever visited him at work when I was a child, it was like the round kind that would keep going. And I used to play with it when I went to his office, and so I'm seeing that. Look, it's the sun. All right, I just want to do one more shuffle. I'm feeling like that's what we want to do. Okay. All right, what's the current energy? Six of Pentacles. What's the energy to embrace? It's the Well. What's the energy to release? It's the Queen of Wands. Okay, one more for each. Judgment, clarifying the Six of Pentacles. Four of Swords, clarifying the Well, energy to embrace. Seven of Pentacles, clarifying the Queen of Wands and energy to release. Bottom of the deck, what's the hidden energy? The Page of Wands. What's the biggest sticking point? I'm going to shuffle that out. Goodness gracious. Okay. The biggest sticking point is the Three of Swords with the Eight of Wands and the Empress. Okay. Hidden energy. What's the biggest advice? Cut the deck to get it. Page of Pentacles. I'm sorry. Ace of Pentacles. That's the biggest advice. Underneath it, clarifying that, is justice. All right, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. Three of Cups. I don't know why I pulled this card, but I did. So I'm going to put it back. All right. So with the current energy, Six of Pentacles, Judgment, what I'm getting is it's kind of sort of random, but like a sieve and either panning for gold, or what I'm really seeing is that there's flour, like white powder in the sieve, and just dusting it, shaking it over wherever she's going to do a rolling pin or whatever people do with flour. Why for some reason people powder the surface of the, I'm not going to get all wrapped up in details. And again, for the past week and a half, I've had a really hard time keeping up with articulating all my thoughts and like pronouncing sounds even. Again, I said like jaw tension and pain, pressure and decisions and changes can amount for different kinds of pressures in the head, with the skull, with the teeth. It has to do with subconscious feelings of control or not having it. All of that stuff is being riddled out on a personal level, but then as well as in the collective level right now. So sort of like Judgment and the energies at play. What I feel is like I'm like a little pixie or like something of a small stature, and the Judgment card or the current energy is like a skyscraper. Like there's something else happening right now where it's almost like we're happy that we don't have more responsibility. Of course you have a ton of responsibility. You have free will. You are living your life. You are Ready Player One in your own situation, and you're responsible for yourself. However, in the grander cosmic way, it sort of feels like there's this skyscraper, monolith of like a presence in the collective energies. And what that is doing is it's taking care of what falls through and hits the surface, primes the canvas. Because if we want to roll with that analogy, pun intended, rolling pin, then it's like prepping to not have a sticky, it's like prepping a surface for a good process with dough or something. And Judgment, universal life force energy, karmic law, the Hermetic principles really are always underpinning what tends to manifest in our world. And that is shaking out what we're getting and what we're seeing move away from us right now. So if you've been working on yourself and you can kind of acknowledge the things that you've been moving away from, and also take stock of how much has changed in your life since October. I just heard to say that because I think it's been a pretty rapid, tighter and tighter, these twists are twisting. So if you haven't taken stock of how much has truly changed since October, it would be a good time to do that, because I think you'll realize that it's like vast amount, like probably few things remind you of that time. And if they do, then right now, the way that you inhabit that old pattern or that old thing, the trajectory, the outward pointing direction that thing's going to go in now is different, you know? Maybe back in October, if you inhabited a certain role in a certain thing, it could be any sort of thing, a job or a relationship or a whatever. You could still be in that same space, but you could be pointing, tracking, you know, sight finder. You could be aiming into a different direction. There's something interesting with this Six of Pentacles and this Judgment card around like equality and around fairness. And I'm rewatching the show The Good Place. It's on my recommendations list if you've ever checked out my website, or if you're interested in checking out the website, it's wordsmithoftheimperial.com. And there's a page /Rex where I listed out TV shows, and I'm pretty sure people know of that show, but I really like it because it speaks of life and death and the meaning of life and philosophy and all these different things with sort of a kid gloves way. And also, I personally identify as sort of an amalgamation of all four characters rolled into one: Jason, Tahani, Eleanor, and Chidi. I feel like a combination of all of their personalities, and the quandaries that they deal with are funny and entertaining. But why did I bring that up? Why did I bring that up? Oh, yeah, there's a book in it. I don't know if it's Immanuel Kant. I believe it is. That Chidi's talking about, or that Eleanor and Chidi are talking about. What do we owe to each other? There's something in this current energy around that, around having some horse blinders come off with not really like, you know, feeling as if you're out anything for being giving of yourself. Six of Pentacles. You're not out anything for being giving of yourself. When you give to others, you give to yourself. When you uphold yourself and your energy in a certain way, you give to yourself. And there's a lot of rewriting or unwriting certain core selfish principles that have not been functional for a lot of people in the collective. So I'm going to move on from this, but that's what I'm getting with this, right? There's just sort of this grandfather. I'm hearing the word grandfather, but I'm also seeing a grandfather clock. So I'm thinking again about judgment energy. It's like this looming thing, but with a clock, right? With an hourglass, like that's on its own timetable. So just what do we owe to each other? It's up to you, you know, golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. And hidden energy, we got the Page of Wands. What I'm thinking as far as hidden as it relates to current is that you're going to be ready before you know it. If you've been putting something on hold or working in a certain way because you're, I don't know, the next big thing, let's call it, you're closer than you think you are to the next big thing. You don't have to do more than you're doing right now. So energy to embrace, again, what I just said, you don't have to do more than you're doing right now, because again, it's really easy to get wrapped up into other people's stuff right now. And the people that are not as adept at managing their emotions and self-regulating and being self-aware about when they're projecting, they're going to be doing it. They're going to be casting. I was telling somebody the other day who's, you know, open-minded and somewhat receptive to speech of energetics and how they're functioning. I was like, I feel like if people are good and they get it, they're good, they're taking care of themselves, and they're like, yeah, it's an intense time. But if they're not good and they're not aware and they don't have necessarily this beliefs, then they're just not good. They're acting out, or like adult tantruming, where you're just getting projection and carelessness with the ways that people are conducting themselves. I feel like I've encountered that a dozen times in the last 3 weeks. But at the end of the day, I keep reminding myself it says more about, like, it is my reaction to any of that stuff that would say something about me, not the fact that it's happened, and I'm allowing things to be. So whenever you get triggered by another person, whenever you're irritated, again, thinking about Mercury retrograde, we're in the shadow period and we're ramping up to experience even more of whatever it is we're having now, because the shadow phase is a little bit of like a, getting into the full force of the retrograde's influence on our devices and communication and all of it. But any type of little roadblock, it could be with people or it could be within yourself. Think about it. Go deep. Do what I said the other day in a video where I was like, unravel it all the way back to the beginning. Unravel it all the way back to the root, because you'll find that it's a habit. You have a way of doing this. I don't know what it's about, but almost everything within us is habitual, like at some point, right? This is interesting and beautiful to think about too, because it's like, if we want to run with simulation theory for a second, we are coded. Growth is coded. Regeneration and reproduction is coded. But how do you make something that is a self-generating creation, like humans and humanity, and it's going to keep creating itself? How do you do that? You make it cyclical, so that there's base copies, but then it always repeats, and it always gets more complicated every time it repeats. We're like that. So if we're encoding ourselves as we go through our lives with these little cyclical things and we don't realize it, it's gonna be the thing. It's like trying to look right here. And so there's a depth that anchors all of these habitual truths that we walk with on a day-to-day basis, and that's what needs our attention right now, because that's what we're going to be. Anything. This is controversial. I can hear somebody in my invisible audience being like, well, what about, no, this isn't, like, there's a lot of potential rebuttal paths for what I'm about to say. But literally anything / everything that bothers you right now in your life, you have the ability to actually set yourself free just a little bit more if you sit with it and allow it to teach you something about yourself, instead of being like, so fuck that, pushing it as far away as you can. That's the energy to embrace. It's a self-study, and it's a beautiful way to engage in this energy. What do we owe to each other? Because a self-study is a collective, we're all puzzles, and we resolve our own inner puzzles so that we can be a whole piece and fit into humanity's puzzle. I can't go fix their puzzle piece. I have different edges, I don't actually know about their piece. They're going to know more about that. So let them do them, I'll do me, and then we can all come together. In theory. So the energy to release, I'm going to get a clarifier for this. It's the Queen of Wands and the Seven of Pentacles. I think that do you remember when you were in grade school and there'd be like vertices and you'd have to connect the dots in order to make a polygram? Polygon? What's a polygram? I meant to say polygon. This is just basic math. I saw somebody, it's like we're getting to this top vertice, we're tracing this shape, and it's time to come down and like do this form of completion on something. And this has to do with what I mentioned the other day, where we're in this 2-week cycle until we get back to, we're in this weird quick 2-week cycle here. So something about what we just touched on, your most recent revelation, your most forefront lesson that you've been mulling over, This assumes that a person is deeply involved in their own introspection and evolution on a pretty regular basis. It's like we're doing a loop-de-loop around that vertex and we're going in a new direction to support this process, energy to embrace. Making sure that when we touch on certain things that we're like irritated by, we're actually considering, why does that bother me so much? How am I, what does this remind me of that it bothers me so much? All that kind of stuff. I'm going to be talking more about that as far as conflict resolution. Yeah. I'm not sure. If you've watched me, if you've noticed this, I announce things I'm going to be doing, and I should just stop doing that. But it's a change of tack, another sailing analogy. So instead of being at, a little bit more like, not student to professor scale, but more so, Seven of Pentacles with the Queen of Wands, it's confident and it's passionate in the way it's enacting itself, right? Putting in hard work and like quality work. I feel like the Queen of Wands energy is very creative, and it's such a powerful energy because when you put passion behind creativity, that's where you make magic, right? Like when I genuinely want to do something, I can paint a really good picture in like an hour, and it can look like a painting that took me 5 hours. This is why I struggled in school so much, because I didn't have the passion behind the creative energy, and there was no gas in the tank, and I was just constantly flopping and then being critiqued for that and feeling my value as an artist diminish and losing my mind. But, there's something around the type of passion that we've put into our work, or just showing up every day, if you don't have like a thing specifically that you're thinking about, that we just have to kind of pull back from, because there's a certain, and this is just for the next few weeks, a certain level of returning to the self that's required right now. Okay. So getting into this sticking point, I just think it's the fear of being known and seen in a new way, or being hurt if you dare to do things differently that honor how you really feel and how you'd really want to live your life, if nobody was judging you and you weren't this contingency, because we're all enmeshed into the lives of others. If I make some crazy choice to become a nudist and join a colony in the Appalachian area, who knows? That people are going to hear about that. My mother's going to have something to say. My brother probably will too. A few people, right? We're enmeshed with other people. You don't just operate in a vacuum. It doesn't mean that you can't do what you want, but you do have to sit with the way you impact other people. And so there's Empress energy here. It's a beautiful, stable, a new kind of energy where it's like, even if you're changing in a good way, if you change and people don't recognize it, sometimes they'll just point out things that they don't like about it. And they're not trying to take you down on purpose, but it's their way of reconciling with the newness. And also Empress energy it's magical, right? It's magical. A lot of people who have never been exposed to very, very high vibrational energy and somebody who can operate in a certain kind of way of being, it's like they don't believe it, they don't understand it. And what I said the other day is like, we tend to shut down, push away, ignore, or fear what we don't understand, and what we can't have that sense of like, I get this, and so I feel comfortable with it. That sense of control. So Eight of Wands is indicating that there's like this fast moving energy. And I think the Three of Swords is here because of any time, any instance, heartbreak or loss, just being shut out and denied for certain times when you've embodied aspects of your true self, or like dared to want things that invite in more stability and abundance and luxury. It's like there's this fear. I would love to say that it's quickly being released, because this is the triad that came out in biggest sticking point. Quickly being released, but it's almost like it's quickly being managed too. It's almost like this is fake it till you make it energy, because you don't address this all at once. It's sort of just like a day by day, week by week, you're moving into showing yourself that there's nothing to fear by doing things differently. And sort of what I said before with the Judgment and the Six of Pentacles around when you give to other people, you give to yourself. If I was sort of in this strange, like random, I was in a parking lot heading a certain direction, and I ended up in like a lockstep side by side with this woman. Like we were both walking together. I don't know why she was so close to me, but she was walking really close to me. So I was like, hey, because like I kind of expected, I don't know, us to deviate, but we did not. And she was like, hey, how are you? And it was so strange because she was talking to me like we're pals. And we chatted for like the 35 seconds that we were walking, and then we parted ways and probably never see her again. Hope you're doing well. Stuff like that. That only makes my day better because it's a safe place, the world, right? To give a hello to a stranger. Again, to each their own. I'm not saying anybody has to, but the way that we interact with the world is the way we see the world. And you never know what is on the other side of someone's world, right? You are not part of other people's worlds. We just think that we can judge and understand what their worlds might be like. You really can't know that unless you're involved. So funny. I am constantly judged in a bunch of different ways that are accurate or not, but like in my job, I'm in people's houses a lot, and I was in a home the other day. It was partial construction zone. There was sawdust everywhere, and the man was like, she doesn't want to sit there. No, she's all clean. She doesn't want to get dirty. I'm like thinking in my head, like, of course that's very polite. Thank you. Yeah, I would love a clean space to sit. If you don't have one, that's fine. I said, it's no problem. This is what I do. I'll just dust myself off. No big deal. But like just assuming, and I'm sure maybe it wasn't about me. That's just a cordial thing to do if you have somebody in your home and there's no good place to sit, right? But some people wouldn't care. Some people wouldn't say anything. But in my mind, I'm like, sir, I have a spit-in can in my car. I'm like a cowboy. It's foul. It smells bad. I know how gross that is. I'm sorry, but who doesn't have a spitting receptacle in their car? Non-smokers, probably. Anyway, though, it's just like you really don't know anything about a person by judgment. What is the energy that we need to call in most right now for assistance? Mary Magdalene, Teacher Awakens. You have something important to share. Follow the inner call. Don't let anything stop you. This is exactly what I'm getting with that sticking point around the Eight of Wands and the Three of Swords and the Empress energy. This is the truth that lives within you. And I don't care if you're a male or female, the Empress energy is still, it's that quote that I put on the meme gallery a couple weeks ago. The woman who does not need any external validation is the most dangerous person on the planet. So too is the male who has healed feminine understanding. There's so much distortion around why. I don't want to go into this right now. But there's something, regardless of gender, very pure that you don't need any validation on. That's just like a burbling, what am I trying to say? Babbling. A geyser. Like if you were to see water in a puddle and like there's something coming up from bubbles percolating at the surface. I was getting visions about that a week and a half ago or so, but it's sort of like that. And because it's like that, it's inevitable. It's the way that the energy is changing right now that's affecting your body and your personal energy. So if you're already feeling that, like whatever it is, I know I speak vaguely, but I'm trying to wrap people into being able to resonate with certain parts of this message for whatever point you're at or however you're feeling. But I'm just saying, like, new abilities, new sensations around what it is, how it is you want to be, what it is you want to say, how you want to create things or not. There's a new leaf being turned over on that whole thing, and it's very exciting, and it's divinely led, and it's what judgment, is standing like tall in the collective picture, shaking out the flower. It's like something's being primed for all of the people who have heeded this call, right, to have this new kind of embodiment to help other people. It says teacher. Teacher awakens. Mary Magdalene had a bad reputation. She's been written off in a number of ways. But she was a super important teacher. What's the energy? Biggest energy, that's what we need to call upon. And there's an unapologeticness. The other thing about feminine female energy, right? There is dark feminine and like defiant energy, but there's also very accepting feminine that does not threaten but knows it's right. And I talked about this weeks and weeks ago, but like there's an ancient fear within the feminine collective around being right and standing in that truth because of the similar cycle 12,000 years ago that did not go well. I mean, it was the fall of a lot of different it was the fall out of balance the last time the universal energies were manifesting in balance on Earth. So that becomes a deep collective trauma that people carry and feel and sense, but they don't know quite why. This is what we need to take caution with. It's Almoira, and this came out yesterday in my short Awakening Presence. The universe is with you. Wear a cloak of protection and love. Yeah, this is, again, what do we owe to each other? Six of Pentacles with Judgment. Life is a game. Everything and everybody around you, it's just a dodecahedron made out of paper. And if you deconstructed every side and laid it flat, that would be your rendered world. If you boxed it all up like a little thing of origami, there's a facet or a bevel of everything out there that's part of you. It just falls on deaf ears. I'm going to work on the dodecahedronic prism of the self was something I was talking about when I first got to Italy on the summer solstice last year. Between now and the solstice, I'm just getting a little message here about how I think if you're about to enter a new, like that whole, Empress energy coming quickly into a level of unapologeticness, because women are very apologetic, you know? It's interesting too. Sometimes I interact with people and it's like, it's the type of interaction where a woman would typically be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And if I don't do that, sometimes, not because I'm not sorry, but because the woman who's typically so sorry doesn't have to be. It's just not that kind of interaction. But a lot of people, you know what I mean? I don't want to dig too deep for an example, but that happens all the time. Women are constantly apologizing for stuff. And I sort of think it's like leaky energy to apologize when you don't have to. A lot of people do it just to make sure that they're still in good standing with whoever they think they need to apologize to, or, you know, for fear of not being liked and everything. And just because a woman isn't concerned with being liked doesn't mean that she's a bitch either, right? There's only two ways to be for a lot of people, but that's just not true. We're very nuanced creatures. We come in peace. I don't know why I'm speaking like this right now, but so particularly like with women, but also just the healing of the feminine polarity that lives within all people, by the solstice, there will be this very secure thing within you, within all of us, within anybody who reaches this message. Even if you see it after the solstice or around the solstice, it's happening now, then that means where there's like an understanding that everything can be managed and kind of diffused from the wisdom. It's like a depth, right? Visioning. I'm seeing remote viewing and Stranger Things with Millie Bobby Brown or The Sunken Place, but I don't love those visuals because they take it into like the darker interpretation, but really just cool, clear, calm, uninterrupted access point that your soul has at this like 0G, you know, neutrality, where it almost feels like there's no air, there's no nothing. It's just like to sit with that and to let your guidance and direction come from that place, there's going to be a huge like leveling up with being able to touch into that wisdom a lot more readily. And by the solstice, I think a lot of people will be living that way. That's beautiful. All right, I'm going to leave it here. I feel like that was one of the more concise ones because I'm just talking really fast. Hope it was helpful, but I'm glad I got all those messages out. And I wanted to do a starseed oracle, but I'll leave that for later because I do have to go get going, go start the day. Sending good vibes out there to everybody. I'll just do a little clearing here. Dream space. Okay, I said this a couple weeks ago, but just like getting outside, letting your aura have time away from other people, that's important. Grounding is important, especially if you feel like you can't separate your energy or get out of emotions, right? Like at the end of the day, if you're still anxious about something or still upset, whatever it is, whatever you encountered on your journeys through the day, putting your feet on the earth and imagining like just send it all down like a toilet flushing. All of the energy, you can release everything that weighs on you and turn it over to the universe and just be like healthier, lighter, not as hung up. A person might say, well, if you kick it out of your mind, then you're not doing what you need to do. That's not true. That's not true. Everything will get done when it needs to if you give it up to the universe. You'll remember things when you need to. You'll be made aware of things when you need to. So, okay. Come back later. Bye.